Now, when it comes to making a video about this player right here, there are a few different ways that we can choose to talk about him that are each kind of valid in their own way. This is the Vancouver Canucks' best prospect in the system, and that's not really saying all too much when you acknowledge just the overall quantity of prospects in the system that are actually noteworthy and have NHL potential. Let's go over to the 2022 NHL Entry Draft and talk about the Vancouver Canucks' 15th overall selection, Jonathan Lekkerimaki. Now, the reason there are different ways we can talk about this right here is because when it comes to Lekkerimaki and what he's been doing so far in the Djurgården's hockey team for the Allsvenskan, it hasn't necessarily been all too great. Now, he's had a few games here and there where he's looked better than others, but when it comes to the raw, hard point potential, this really has not been a good season, nor a good start so far for the 15th overall Finn. He is a guy that, as we had noted in the Why I Want video, as well as the video we made when he was taken by Vancouver, is a pretty lethal sniper. He's only 5'11", 172, is a right-handed forward, but this is a guy who gets by and who has put his name on the map due to his goal scoring. You could even see the scouting report here on Elite Prospects that shot may be the best of Lekkerimaki's offensive tools, but it's not the only one. He's also a reasonably depth puck handler with the skill to blend pass receptions in the dangles, deceptive maneuvering, and a sound mechanical base with the puck almost always handled in his hip pocket. He is an offensive dynamo, and last season, he was a goal-a-game guy, or almost a goal-a-game guy, excuse me, for the Djurgården's J20 team, and he had 7 goals and 2 assists in 26 games for the regular Djurgården team in the SHL. He also was a beast for Team Sweden at the U18s, getting almost 3 points a game. He was at a goal a game. He was almost at 2 assists a game. He was fantastic, and it's why, heading into the Allsvenskan, because Djurgårdens got demoted from the SHL last season, a lot of people were saying, hey, Lekkerimaki might actually have himself an opportunity to show himself off in the second highest hockey league in Sweden, so this is not the best league, but it's the second best, and actually look pretty good while doing it, because he already had a pretty good amount of points in the SHL, especially for a 17-18-year-old, but now, as an 18-year-old, he hasn't really had the best production so far. He's only got 4 points in 13 games played. He's on pace for about 16 points in a total 51-game campaign, which is not great for a guy that was drafted last season as a 15th overall pick. Despite this though, and this is kind of why I said there are many different ways we can go about this conversation, because it's true that he has been somewhat disappointing to start off his season, but when you go over to conversations that were happening back at the draft table, it kind of paints a little bit of a different picture as to how much Lekkerimaki was actually valued at the draft. Take a look at this tweet made by Cam Robinson on November 2nd, so 2 days ago. The Vancouver Canucks are struggling greatly this season, and unfortunately, their top prospect has not been finding much success either. Jonathan Lekkerimaki has just 4 points in 13 Allsvenskan games, while averaging just 1.46 shots per game, behind his draft year pace at the SHL level. It's not ideal. The replies over here say, among U20 skaters in the Allsvenskan, Lekkerimaki sits 10th amongst points per game, and if we include U20 skaters, he falls to just 16th. He's only 18, so there's plenty of time to correct the course, but it is a sluggish start. There's a reply, or a quote tweet, excuse me, on the initial Cam Robinson tweet from AJ. It says that Grant McKegg, scout of the Montreal Canadiens area, and a guy that is usually trending on Twitter for his hot takes about prospects, McKegg leaked a text of one of our scouts wanting to take Lekkerimaki at first overall. AJ is a Canadiens fan, so our scouts is Canadian scout. Apparently, there was a scout in the Canadiens organization that wanted Lekkerimaki somewhere in the top of the draft. Cam Robinson replies, that can't be real. AJ then says, I'm pretty sure the tweet is deleted now, but McKegg was talking to the scout about Lekkerimaki being in the mix for first overall. All I have right now are his draft rankings, which had Lekkerimaki at 4. This is the list published by Grant McKegg, Slafkovsky, Shane Wright, Ugrin, Lekkerimaki, Kemmel, Jiricek, Geekie, Cooley, Nemec, and Lambert. So you could see that Grant McKegg, because we all kind of know that he likes to go against the grain, he had some really out there draft rankings. Ugrin at 3, Lekkerimaki at 4, Jiricek 6. Okay, I think that's a pretty standard number right there, but Cooley at 8. Oy, 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 that's a pretty interesting number right there. There is indeed another reply though, and this is kind of why we're making this video in the first place, and I'm gonna say it right here, I don't know if this is 100% confirmed, so take this with a grain of salt. I'm not too sure if McKegg actually did tweet this, but if we're led to believe that he did, this is the tweet. It's posted by Gulag. For the folks who figure I pull these quotes out of my posterior, and then included is a picture of somebody texting somebody who appears to be a scout. Lekkerimaki is the other player in the mix, and then the reply says, "Unreal how this has come down to the wire. Need another month of hockey to figure this out. I haven't seen this before." And so, I know Grant McKegg has had some stuff about his on Twitter falsified before. The entire Strome is better than McDavid thing was actually not real, unfortunately, but when it comes to Lekkerimaki potentially being a first overall caliber guy in the eyes of one, maybe several, but at the very least one Canadian scout, it does make for some interesting conversation as to A, what the Canucks actually got 15th overall, and how poorly his start has been to kick off 22-23. It's interesting, isn't it? How some scouts were super high on him that he was a 4th overall ranked guy on their list, how other scouts were even higher on him that he probably should have been considered for 1st overall ahead of Slafkovsky and Wright, how he dropped to 15th in a way that I honestly thought was kind of unfair because I think, if you asked me, Lekkerimaki should have been probably a top 11, top 10 pick. And now you have yourselves the start with a Vancouver system that kind of needs this guy to be the best because he isn't really surrounded by any other company to challenge him for the title of best prospect in the organization because there just aren't too many prospects in the organization at all. So having this guy here as a 1st overall projected pick or a 1st overall caliber pick in the eyes of some people is great. But seeing how he has started out is not great in the slightest. Now, this entire thing brings up another conversation as to what if that Canadian scout, if we assume that the Canadiens did want Lekkerimaki at first, or they were thinking about it in the very least, if we assume that actually did happen, let's say that that one scout is able to go all 12 angry men on the rest of the Canadian staff, and is able to convince everybody, one by one, okay, Lekkerimaki is our guy. Let's take him. If that guy goes first over freaking all, and he actually makes the NHL right away, which I don't think he should, I don't think he's ready, I mean, he's not even really able to produce all too well in the Allsvenskan, for crying out loud, let alone the SHL, or even the AHL for that matter, it would be quite interesting to see how things would develop in that way. I mean, I guess you could say for Slafkovsky, the guy didn't produce all too much in Finland, and then he went over to the NHL, and you could see that he's a guy that kind of belongs, it's just he hasn't necessarily been anywhere near his peak just yet. If Lekkerimaki was forced to go through something like that, then who knows what his development path would have looked like. For Vancouver, though, at the moment, all they gotta do is just let Djurgården do their thing. Hopefully, they give him a little bit more ice time, a little bit more room to move. It's not really like he hasn't been given any opportunities. He just really hasn't been the best, and at the end of the day, that's going to improve with consistent coaching, building good habits, and the Djurgården team allowing him to actually make those mistakes. Because, as we had seen a few days ago, he actually had a pretty good game. There's a tweet made by Chris Faber replying to the initial Cam Robinson tweet from 2 days ago on Wednesday. Take a look at what Chris said over here. I think Lekkerimaki has looked better over his last 4 games, but there's still no bottom line on production. That's for sure. Cam replies saying, he looked fine today as I was focusing on Dvorsky, but I certainly haven't seen Lekkerimaki looking better than he did last year. He's looking less confident. And so ultimately it's very strange acknowledging that apparently somebody had him at 1st overall, others had him at 4, and now you acknowledge what he's been doing lately. But Todd of the Council, the your thoughts about the Canucks' best prospect, how he's been performing thus far, and where you could see him going in the future. Hopefully the short-term future is filled with more points and an actual progression in his development here, but long-term, what do you see Lekkerimaki being able to accomplish? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this Juraj 99. And bye.